Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a look at the new Transformers Legacy Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide 4-pack. Just like the previous Worlds Collide 4-pack, this is a fun little assortment of more or less unrelated characters and figures done up in special decos and tooling to either be new versions of old characters or new characters entirely. And in this case, we're getting Autobot Goldbug, finally getting a proper G1 Goldbug. We're getting the Insecticon Ransack, we're getting new character Skywasp, and then we're getting a Toy Colors Scorponok. So overall, a very cool looking set. That being said, if you see my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the figure's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll get a quick look at the instructions, and then we'll see all four figures themselves in both alternate and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So this new Creatures Collide 4-pack comes in a packaging similar to the Worlds Collide, however, it no longer has a window on the front, being just a solid box, much like Leader and Commander class, Titan class, all that. It does still have the cool little like honeycomb cutout on the top, and on the top you can see renders of each toy. You got your Goldbug, Ransack, Skywasp, and Scorponok. Call him Predacon Scorponok to help, differentiate him from the Decepticon. And of course on the front you get this really just beautiful artwork of Goldbug facing off against these three, evil characters, one being a Decepticon, two being Predacons. And what's funny is it's called Creatures Collide, but it may as well have been called like Bugs Collide or Insects Collide or something, because everyone in this packaging is either a literal bug or they have bug in the name. So pretty interesting coincidence there, if it is a coincidence, I don't know. On this side, you just get a render of your Evergreen Bumblebee design. You see the Evergreen Bumblebee head, you see RC over here, Mirage, Cyberverse Optimus. Same old nonsensical random pictures that are on most Buzzworthy boxes. All right, here on the back we get full renders of each toy. We can see Goldbug takes 20 steps to transform, Ransack takes 14, Skywasp 20, and Scorponok 25. So Goldbug, for anyone that doesn't know, he is a new head retool of the Netflix Bumblebee toy. And this one, a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen with that, because there were some questions over whether or not the Volkswagen version of that Bumblebee / Cliffjumper mold was available outside of Walmart, or if it was just specifically the Bumblebee toy. Well, it turns out, luckily, it's just the specific toy, which means they can still use this body type for other things. And a lot of people were crossing their fingers, really hoping we'd get a G1 accurate vehicle mode. Luckily, we did, because Goldbug, just like his previous form Bumblebee, does turn into a Volkswagen Beetle. So this is really cool. The head sculpt, I think, is the same head sculpt that came with the Shatterglass Goldbug, but I'm not entirely sure, so we'll definitely be checking on that. You can actually even see the Volkswagen licensing right here. And honestly, it's just, it's pretty exciting because we weren't sure we were going to get this. And it also leaves open the prospect of us maybe getting Lift and Tap out in the future. So that's very cool. Ransack is a new head retool of Kickback. The original Ransack was considered one of the deluxe Insecticons, who are not part of the familiar like black and purple trio. They're lesser known by a good margin because they were never in the cartoon. And unfortunately, Ransack hasn't had his own unique mold since the G1 toy, and that holds true here still. He is just a retool, though if they were going to pick another Insecticon to choose from, Kickback was the best choice. And they even, pre-tooled some things with this guy in mind to where his little blade things actually become an abdomen for his Locust mode. So it actually works out very well. And then over here we get Skywasp. And Skywasp is interesting. So color-wise, he is based off of the unreleased Halloween HorrorCon Waspinator, who was part of a 2-pack that was supposed to be included with Universe Nightprowler. Now, we recently just got Nightprowler as a Walmart exclusive, so this actually completes that 2-pack that never got released. Now, originally, this was just going to be another form of Waspinator, but during Fun Publications run, when they were coming up with different toy designs for exclusives, they designed a Thrilling 30 recolor of Waspinator that evoked those black and purple colors from that old 2-pack, and then gave it a different identity. And I'm okay with this. I would rather get this as a new toy than just a randomly recolored Waspinator, because now we get 2 different characters from this mold. And then lastly, we're also getting our Predacon Scorponok done up in the original Beast Wars toy colors, which means he's primarily black, which ironically makes him more toy accurate color-wise than the recently released vintage reissue, because that one went and swapped out the blacks for a more show accurate gray. So real back and forth there. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet with these 3 characters right here are 3 evil characters. They all include an alternate head that can be popped onto their body. In Ransack's case, he just comes with the kickback version of the head, but done up with black eyes instead of red ones. So it basically becomes a toy-accurate kickback head, which you can use for this guy, or if you have kickback, you can swap it out on his body and have a much more G1 toy-accurate kickback. So that's pretty neat. And then Skywasp actually comes with the buzzsaw tooling for his head, which is, considered like the normal robot mode head instead of the mutant head. So you have an option of displaying him with a more Waspinator-like head or a more buzzsaw-like head. So that's very cool. And then finally, Scorponok comes with an alternate head that is based off of his old toy's mutant head. It's the same one that came with the exclusive Sandstorm toy. So for the first time, I think, really ever, we're getting swappable heads. Very, in the vein of like Marvel Legends or Masters of the Universe. And I don't know if this is going to be a thing from now on, like if they decided they're going to give you swappable heads, or if this is just kind of a one-off because it was already in the tooling and they needed to flesh out the price. I'm not really sure. It is appreciated. I think it's very, very cool because options are always a good thing. But we'll just have to wait and see in that regard because who knows what Hasbro's planning. All right, so that is our box. It is very cool. It has amazing artwork. It was a really good look at the characters. Really everything you need for this 4-pack. So now, let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, so here's our huge instruction sheet for our 4 characters. And we get a render of the 4 right here that serves as kind of like the cover, though it's not quite folded to be a cover. We open this up, pretty big. So first, we look at the alternate head swap you can do for Skywasp. And then it shows you how to place his weapon in his hand. And then the rest of this top area just shows you how to transform him to his beast mode. Next up, we get Scorponok. Shows off how to work his accessories, as well as swap his available heads. And then we get his transformation on the bottom here. Flip around. On the top, we now get Goldbug. And what's funny is, like, you get his little introductory render here, but then you get his accessories off to the side for some reason. So this just shows you how to, like, construct the bazooka, have him hold his backpack as a shield, all different ways he can wield his weapons, all that fun stuff. And then we get to the transformation to his vehicle mode, as well as the, attack mode or weapon mode for his vehicle. And then the whole power sled mode for his vehicle mode. And you can see there's no alternate head thing here because he doesn't come with one. But then we get to Ransack, who does include an alternate head that is not shown off in the instructions. So I don't know if it was just accidentally left out, seeing as the other 2, the other 2 bad guys have theirs, or if they just didn't include it because it's not really his head anyway, and really is more of an alternate head for kickback, so I'm not sure. But this just shows you how to get his wings set up, and then attach his accessories in different configurations. And then we go to his insect mode here, along with weapon storage and how to assemble his abdomen section, so you can make him a proper locust. So pretty cool. Again, not entirely sure why they didn't include the alternate head thing for Ransack, but I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know how to pop a head off and pop a new one on. Now we get to see our 4 figures in their alternate modes, and interestingly, whether by coincidence or by design, they seem to almost kind of come in pairs when it comes to their coloration. So we have Goldbug and Ransack here that share a black and yellow or goldish color scheme. And then we get Skywasp and Scorponok that share a black, purple, and red color scheme. Obviously, none of the colors match up one for one, different shades and all that. But that is funny how that works. And this is the order that they were laid out in the box art too, so don't know. It's probably just a coincidence, just kind of a funny one. And this is a very, very interesting group shot because you have a car, a giant robotic insect, and then 2 very organic looking insects. So they're a really odd group of characters. But I don't mind that, right? The whole point of Legacy is to showcase different eras of the Transformers franchise. And I feel these toys pull that off pretty well. I mean, really, at the end of the day, they're just representing G1 and Beast Wars. So maybe not the most inclusive set, but it is still better than just getting, all G1 characters or all Beast Wars characters. Now we're going to see Goldbug with his previous incarnation Bumblebee, as well as his evil Shattered Glass incarnation. We can see here that obviously he shares a vehicle body type with Bumblebee because they more or less shared an alt mode in Generation 1. Granted, the vehicle looked a little bit different, but they were both based off of a Volkswagen Beetle, so I definitely don't have an issue with them just, using the same vehicle shell. It really is close enough that unless you just want to get super OCD about the finer details, I think this is totally fine. I will say I like Goldbug's colors a lot more than this Bumblebee's. One of my biggest complaints with the Bumblebee was their choice of using this Kraft American cheese yellow, almost an orange for him, when the character is actually supposed to be a much more bright neutral yellow. And then of course we had the whole weird thing where he lacked an Autobot symbol here on what becomes his robot chest and instead gets it there. Which technically in the cartoon he does miraculously, spawn an Autobot symbol on the hood, but then it makes his robot mode look really just incomplete without having that nice sigil right there on the chest. I mean, even the original Bumblebee toy had the Autobot symbol right there. So, both in color and placement of his tampo details, I think this is, already looking like a better figure. The Shattered Glass one uses the Cliff Jumper vehicle shell, which is a more of a muscle car type vehicle. And when this guy got released, it did cause a little bit of concern. Because when you think Goldbug, you think of Volkswagen Beetle, and this guy not using that body type made people wonder, is a regular Goldbug going to do the same thing? Now, the fact that the Shattered Glass toy did use this vehicle type didn't necessarily mean that the regular universe equivalent wouldn't get the Beetle alt mode, because we know that Volkswagen doesn't like their car designs being used for evil characters. So there is that. But it also meant that there was no indication that we would get a Volkswagen Goldbug. So, I was kind of holding my breath for that one, waiting to see the inevitable reveal wherever it came. And I was very much relieved to see that they actually gave him the right vehicle mode, because without it, I just don't think he would feel like a proper update at all. And now we get a close look at Ransack's Beast Mode, along with the mold mate for Ransack, Kickback here. And as I already mentioned, the original Ransack toy was not a retool of Kickback, he was his own unique mold. However, nowadays, Hasbro has to be a lot more economically minded when they're, determining what molds to use for what, because unlike back in the 80s, when they could just use already created molds in the form of Diaclone or Microchange, here now they have to make everything themselves, which means a much heavier investment per mold. So the unfortunate result of that is that you're going to see some characters be retools of others when originally they weren't, and the best thing Hasbro can do is at least make it look good and make it look convincing, which sometimes they succeed at, sometimes they really don't. Something like Combiner Wars Pipes comes to mind. But I will say, if they were going to pick any mold to retool from to make a Ransack, Kickback is clearly the best choice, because they do have fairly similar looking beast modes. And they were smart about how they did this. They tooled these blades here so that they could become an insect abdomen to just better match the original beast mode, where, Ransack was a locust, so he had this big abdomen. Kickback was a grasshopper, and the abdomen was less pronounced. I mean, technically, grasshoppers have big fat abdomens too, but you know what? I didn't design the original 80s toys, so I don't know. Blame those guys. Blame Takara. So, they're already on the right path with getting the color scheme right and having that accessory that can be differently arranged to make something else. And then they also went the extra step of retooling the head. And the original Kickback, I honestly always thought he had this really stupid looking head, because it was really just the robot head just looking down at the ground. It doesn't have eyes or anything. It's just got these weird looking antennae. And then you could see his face on the original. But they got smart, and they created this panel that folds up and blocks the robot face, so it looks a little bit more convincing as, an insect's head. However, Ransack really improved on that, because they gave him an all-new head mold here which actually has compound eyes and has antennae that don't look, you know, silly. And then, of course, he gets to utilize that panel to cover his robot face, too. So I think from a mold perspective, Ransack here makes for a much more convincing-looking insect. Now, his colors, I think, are a little more plain than Kickback's. He doesn't quite get, like, the cool gradients and stuff going on, the smaller, like, paint details. But they're trying to match him, I think, a little more closely to the original toy, which was fairly bland when it came to coloring. It was just kind of black and yellow, and that was it. Next, we get a look at the beast mode for Skywasp, and we can see his two mold mates here. So here's the progenitor of the mold, Waspinator, and then we have his recolor / retool, Buzzsaw. So these two, you know, were always supposed to be mold mates of each other. The original toys had two heads to choose from, and then the mutant head was more commonly associated with Waspinator, whereas the regular robot head was more commonly associated with Buzzsaw. Now, by default, we see that Skywasp uses the regular mutant head, but as we saw, he also gets an alternate Buzzsaw-based head or robot-based head. So it's really up to you which form he takes, and we'll get a better look at that, you know, when we look at the robot modes. But as far as the Wasp modes, I think, you know, they all look really good. Obviously, Skywasp does not have anything, you know, approaching realistic coloration, because he's purely just a Skywarp homage. You're not going to find a Wasp out there that's, you know, black with bright purple legs and red wings and gold eyes. Like, he's just doing his own thing. So he, you know, kind of drops the ball in the realism department. These two look a little more feasible as actual living things. But again, he's just a fun recolor, so I don't mind him. And I do really like the gold they use. You can see that they don't utilize the translucent plastic on the head. In fact, I'm not even sure if it is translucent this time. Either way, it's like fully painted over, so it's just got this metallic, like silverish gold eyes that also match the stripes on the abdomen area there. Yeah, he's just pretty cool looking. You know, he does his own thing. Looks good with, you know, the other two mold mates here. And he does seem to have more or less the same amount of paint as the other two, so he doesn't feel cheap or anything. Alright, here we get to see the beast mode for Skywasp with the first black and purple recolor of Waspinator. And this was the Collectors Club exclusive Parasite. And again, he was supposed to be a Waruder drone who came with a little, like, mini Waspinator character that was supposed to be his pilot. And originally, this toy was conceived as a separate character, right? It wasn't the Halloween horror pack Waspinator, and the whole idea of Skywasp hadn't really come up yet. But what ended up happening, and this is something I found out while, you know, prepping for this video, is that they had a bunch of leftover stock of these Waruder drones, because they just didn't really sell all that well. Plus, you had to buy like a 4-pack, you know, so you're just buying like 4 Waspinators, and I guess that wasn't very appealing for everyone. They had all this leftover stock, and they decided to sculpt like a new head for them. Like, they were going to do one based on the, you know, the regular robot head or the Buzzsaw head, whatever you want to call it, and make them new characters. So basically just swap the heads on them, sell them as something new. So that was the idea. They were going to put a regular robot head on this guy and make a new character called Skywasp. I don't know what the identities of the other characters were going to be. I could probably look it up, but, you know, I haven't done so at this point. So that is where this name comes from. So in my head, I had that a little backwards. I thought it was Skywasp first, and then they swapped it, but it's actually the other way around. They never fully realized that concept. You know, they never actually got around to making the new head sculpts or anything. So having the inclusion of the alternate head for this toy, the new one, really allows it to fulfill two different roles. It can look like the old Halloween Horror Con Waspinator. It can look like our Collectors Club Parasite. Or it can look like what they intended to do and make the character of Skywasp back before they lost the license. So he's really a triple homage, which is really, really cool. And allows you to, you know, kind of headcanon him to be whatever you want him to be. Now, when we look at our Skywasp and compare him to Parasite, you can see they really went like kind of one for one in the color scheme. Everything more or less matches. He's got the gold eyes and the gold striping on the back here. The clear red wings. He's got purple and mostly the same places. The Parasite toy has a little bit more purple, specifically here on the back, and then a little bit like between the antennae. So he gets a little bit less on the purple, but they're very, very close to one another. It's almost a one-for-one redo, which is fine. Not everybody's going to have the Parasite toy because, you know, those club exclusives were very expensive. which, you know, as much as I kind of miss the days of having the Collectors Club and having BotCon every year, I don't miss the prices. And the fact that Hasbro pretty much just shut all that down and now does all the exclusives themselves, pretty much all the exclusives just sell for normal retail price. So, you know, an exclusive deluxe is going to be $20 to $25. And then when you get something like this 4-pack, well, this 4-pack sold at a discount, which is even better than retail price. So, you know, it is really cool that we can get, you know, these obscure, crazy characters directly from the source without being charged a premium for low production runs. So, yeah, both very cool. And when I did the Kingdom Waspinator review, I mentioned that both of these molds have their pros and cons. Like, this one's better in some ways, this one's better in others. So I think they're close enough to where he can easily just be a replacement for this guy, and you won't really feel like you're missing out on anything. Now we get to see Scorponok Scorpion mode, along with his regular Kingdom version, and the BotCon-inspired recolor of Sandstorm that was released with Walmart. Now, as far as the Scorpion mode, there's not too much different between this Toy Colors version and the more show-inspired one. It's mainly just a palette swap of the gray color to black, and then this bright, obnoxious purple to a more metallic bluish purple. There are some small differences. You can see they actually traded out the red fangs for bluish purple ones, and he does appear to have some extra paint apps on the shoulder spikes right here that make him this kind of like gunmetal gray color, whereas his are just left purple. So it's not a huge difference, but it is one that allows him to much better match the original toy. Now, as far as trading out the black for gray, I'm kind of neutral on that. Like, the original toy was black, but the Scorponok character was gray in the show, and even the recent reissue, you know, decided to do gray instead of black. So that doesn't really, you know, matter to me too much. But one thing I think is a huge improvement is the change to the purple color, because one of the things I really disliked about Kingdom Scorponok was that they went with this really obnoxiously just flat and bright purple for his claws and his shoulder pads and everything. And I never thought it looked good on him. It doesn't match the toy, which was like a very clearly blue color and had a really nice metallic quality to it. And it really doesn't even match the cartoon. The cartoon, you know, was more blue than purple. So I always thought that was just a really just garish, ugly choice. Now, this new coloration doesn't perfectly match the old toy, and we'll see that in a moment. It is more purple than it is blue, but it comes a lot closer and, you know, still maintains that really nice metallic quality. So if this Kingdom one used this color or something similar to it instead of what it used, I would have liked it a lot more than I do, because it just really would have meshed very well. And unfortunately, it's not a simple matter of just swapping some parts out, because a lot of this is all like pinned together. If you are somebody who's very crafty and has the right equipment, you can probably do it. But as far as like your casual, just collector or consumer, it's probably not a safe thing to attempt to do. But hey, if you're feeling confident and you want to give it a shot, yeah, you can go for it. Another thing I want to point out that's really interesting and kind of unfortunate. So when we reviewed this toy, I noted that he doesn't have the little maximal symbols on his missiles, which was kind of like an in-joke in the cartoon, where they had maximal symbols on them, just, you know, specifically as like a way of saying like, hey, these missiles are for you. Well, the Toy Colors one does, which is funny because that wasn't a thing on the old toy. So the TV show inspired one doesn't get the symbols, but then the Toy Colors one does. You could swap them. The colors won't match exactly because his reds are a little bit darker than his, but it's not a huge difference. You could probably get away with it. And part of me wonders if they included that like specifically to trade out with this guy, kind of in a way that they included the kickback head with our Ransack. I don't know. I haven't really seen it mentioned anywhere. Perhaps somebody could ask those guys if they ever get a chance, just to see, like, was that the intention? You know, were those missiles meant to be traded out with your Kingdom Scorponok so that both toys could have more accurate missiles? Or was it just something they felt they had the extra paint budget to do this time? I'm not really sure. And let's see, barring all that, the other big difference we can see in this mode is the colors of the Cyberbee inside. The old one just has gray like his body with some like bluish painted wings and some red eyes. This one has what appears to be a black body with some, I think, gray painted details, blue on the wings, and just they leave the eyes black. So yeah, there's just kind of some some give and take here as far as the color choices. And then, of course, Sandstorm, he's really just doing his own thing. I already talked about how he's not, overly accurate to his source material at all. The original Sandstorm was much more gray in appearance than the sandy color. Though, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a toy color Sandstorm. They like milking molds, but I don't think they're going to go that far. I think we're just going to have to settle for, what we got from the Walmart exclusive here. And here's our group shot with the vintage reissue of Beast Wars Scorponok. And this thing is more or less like the original. Just imagine his gray as being black, and that's exactly what the original toy looked like. So you can see what I was talking about here. He does have, the metallic color on his claws and everything like this one does, but is easily much more blue than the purple they use here. So I guess on this one they were going for something halfway in between toy accuracy and cartoon accuracy, which not sure if I would have gone that route if you're making a toy colors version, but that's what they went with. Aside from that, you can really see the resemblance. Even the fact that they went and they painted his fangs the same color as his claws rather than the same color as his eyes like the Kingdom toy did. And he's got the red stinger. Now, one thing I would have loved to see, just a little extra bit of paint budget, is if they had painted his stinger tail to have that really cool blue to red gradient on there. Like either put the paint app at the base of this red piece or put it here or something. That would have made that look really nice because his stinger is just way, way better than, the Kingdom one. And that's something I've said before, especially when I reviewed this guy. The original mold, to me, is just a cooler toy. It's older, it doesn't have all the same articulation, especially when it comes to, the ankles. But I just think the transformation's a lot cooler. I think, the big imposing nature of his Scorpion mode and even his Robot mode just makes him just a tougher cookie. And, I was never really crazy about the Kingdom Scorponok mold. Now, I think this is, the best coloration of the mold so far, but that doesn't make it a good toy, you know what I mean? It's passable. If you don't have another option and you just need a Scorponok, it works. That's why they went out of their way to make a toy colors version. But I gotta tell you, this thing right here is, to me, just a much more satisfying toy. The only real downside to it is that the little bee launching gimmick does tend to be on a hair trigger. So you gotta be really careful with that because it will just kind of randomly launch the bee out of there if you look at it funny. But that's really more of just a quality assurance issue, not really an issue with the design itself. And there are some things you can do to mitigate that, so yeah. Definitely not a replacement for this thing, but he also goes for $45 at Walmart. So this is a much, much cheaper option and will scale and fit in a little bit better with your more modern collection. Here we finally get to look at our 4 figures in their robot modes. And one thing that becomes amusingly apparent to me is that Ransack just towers over the other guys in this package. And they're all deluxes. Though looking at Goldbug, you may not know it. And it's funny to me, right? Because I never thought I'd see the day where an Insecticon would be by far the largest deluxe in a package. But, that just goes to show how small deluxes can get here. And I know size isn't everything, but even with the little accessories and stuff Goldbug comes with, it's really hard to convince me that this is worth the same amount as this. I mean, look at that. He's half his size. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Value is getting really subjective here these days. But I will say that all 4 of these guys look phenomenal in their robot modes. Even Ransack, who is, just a kickback retool, he looks enough like the classic figure to where I give him a pass. I mean, really, the only major feature he's missing is having the abdomen extend down here. And you can technically leave these blades attached in that spot for the abdomen in the insect mode, but it's far too long. So his feet, they can't reach the ground with it attached. So, you just gotta leave them off and either attach him, to the forearms, have him hold him, or stick him on the wings. But other than that one discrepancy, I mean, honestly, I think he pulls it off very, very well. Goldbug looks just like you would expect him to. Gold body, blue head. He has blue hands, which in the cartoon, his body was just all gold. They just had the blue head. Our Skywasp here, I mean, he looks like Skywasp, a purple and black Waspinator. And then our toy color Scorponok looks fantastic. And even though the proportions and everything look off, he does very strongly resemble the original Scorponok toy. So, really awesome assortment right here. Here's our robot mode group shot for Goldbug. So again, we get Bumblebee on the left, Shatterglass Goldbug on the right. Now, one thing I wasn't sure about until I got to see them side by side is whether or not this toy shares a head sculpt with this version of Goldbug, and it turns out he does. Now, briefly, I actually believe that wasn't the case for two reasons. One, the different paint apps, specifically here on like the mouth plate, where they extend the mouth plate a little further out compared to this one, made it look like it was different. But the more I get a close look at this, the more I'm pretty certain this is actually the exact same head sculpt. Though oddly enough, the head sits a bit higher on this copy of Goldbug than it does on this one. It might just be a tolerance thing, I'm not entirely sure. Or it could, maybe it's just the difference in molding. I don't know. Would the different body types affect it? I'm not sure, but it does appear to sit a little bit higher. So yeah, it is apparently the same head sculpt, but they do a really, really good job of using some, clever paint to just give the impression of him being, something very different. And that's okay. I mean, as long as it looks good, I'm happy with it. And it does look very good. And they use those paint apps to great effect to make the same sculpt look like the, original Shatterglass Goldbug, the one that was a Hot Rod retool, or your classic G1 Goldbug. So I like it. Then, of course, we get our Bumblebee here, who is the only use of this mold family to, use the same car shell as this guy. Again, the colors are not great on that Bumblebee, and the symbol placement is off. But he still makes a really good, kind of before and after companion piece to this guy. Now, these toys, they have, all sorts of different configurations for their bazooka weapon. You can have it as a, single bazooka. You can have it broken up as different weapons attached all over the place. You can pop the backpack off and make a shield out of it. Personally, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like using the backpack as a shield because it makes their back really hollow. Plus, Goldbug, unlike Bumblebee and, even the Shatterglass Goldbug, the original, G1 Goldbug, he was known for having a big backpack just because of the way he transformed and everything. And it was something they even included, like, in the cartoon. He had this big, almost like hunchback, backpack thing going on. So personally, I think it just feels right to leave it where it is. Now, I will say I am getting sick to death of the bazooka weapon thing that this mold comes with, because every version of this mold comes with that. And that bazooka really only made sense for Cliffjumper. He's the only one that actually wielded a bazooka in the cartoon. He's the only one that had the rocket skis that this can, configure to for the vehicle mode. So it really only works for him. And they just keep including it because, one, that means they don't have to spend the money to design a new weapon. But two, then they can kind of argue, for this deluxe price point. Because like, oh, look how many weapons he has. But I gotta tell you, at this point, I'm willing to eat the loss in value if they just included like a regular blaster or something, because it always looks wrong on characters like this. Your espionage, spy type characters to just be so fully decked out with weapons. The only time I think it really works is for the Shatterglass Goldbug because, he is characterized as having this small man syndrome, so for him to overcompensate with all these weapons actually makes sense to me. But in these other cases, like, yeah, I mean, it's good to have stuff, but it always seems like the wrong weapons. And, I'm pretty much done with this mold family at this point. It's been reused so many times now, it's ridiculous. I will admit that I still do want to see a glyph and tap out before they move on, but outside of that, I really think it's time to move on. Despite all that, despite my hangouts with them just reusing this mold to death, I do think this guy looks great and looks just about as perfect as he possibly can. So, very, very happy with him, and I really think he just pairs up very well with Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, any other guys that use this, your Bug Bite, your Hubcap. This is easily one of my favorite, if not, my favorite uses of this mold. Now we get to compare Ransack's robot mode to Kickback's, and like I said, I already think he looks more than good enough for being a retool. The only detail that really doesn't line up, again, is that abdomen, but maybe that's for the best, because the original Ransack's robot mode was kind of goofy looking. So this does give him a much more imposing silhouette. He doesn't look quite like he's gonna, waddle after you. And I really like it. I think the colors just, work for him very well. He is a bit plainer looking than Kickback, But this is also because Ransack, he never appeared in the cartoon, right? So we don't have an alternative cartoon-inspired color scheme to go off of. We just have the toy. And the toy was pretty much just black and yellow. It had red eyes and orange wings. And, I mean, they nailed it. They did exactly what they were supposed to do with this. So I think he looks fantastic. I really do. And he's a great companion piece to Kickback. And, the fact that they scale together now, it's just really good for me. I'm very, very happy with it. One thing I will point out is that, interestingly, the new Ransack head, it sits a little bit looser than Kickback. So you can see it's kind of got some wobble to it. It's not too bad. It'll more or less stay in place when you pose it, but it does feel a bit looser. And then we got to talk about that alternate head. So let's take a look at this thing. This is the alternate head. That is just a Kickback head, but it is absolutely repainted to look like the G1 toy, complete with the black visor and even the little black design here on the top of the helmet. Now, you could go ahead and put it on your Ransack if you really want to. It will fit. It won't really make sense, but you could always headcanon it as like some new Insecticon, right? Maybe a clone of Kickback. Or you can do really what it's meant for and attach it to Kickback. So you just pop the Kickback head off, which may not be super easy. Usually helps if you kind of tilt it back and then pull. Something I want to point out, and I don't know if it's just variance in like the factory or something, but it does appear there's a difference in the mouth. My Legacy Kickback here, he's got kind of like a grimace going on. So I get this to focus. It really doesn't want to. Focus. Focus. Why does my camera hate focusing close up? With how much I paid for this, it should. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it well, but he's kind of got his teeth showing a little bit, like he's gritting. This one appears to have a more closed mouth. And it's a very small difference, and I don't even know if it's intentional or if it's just the way the factory produced these, but it does make his mouth look more closed. Maybe it's just me. But you can see, again, black visor, black design on top. So you can go ahead, pop this into Kickback's little neck socket there, and have a G1 toy accurate Kickback. And it looks really good. It does. If you're going for that G1 look, my stance when, it comes to toy colors versus cartoon colors is whatever looks better, right? Now, I will generally lean toward toy colors because I'm kind of nostalgic for it. In this case, it is cool to have. It's a really neat novelty, but I do actually prefer the red visored version just because it makes his eyes stand out a lot more and, makes him look a little more sinister and, I don't know, just less like a soulless piloted mech, I suppose, which is really where the original Kickback, his design came from. So it's up to you, but now you have an option. You can get your toy colors one or your cartoon colors one, because really there wasn't a huge difference in his color scheme between the two, and the biggest difference was, the head. So it's up to you, but I think it's just awesome to have that option. Here's Skywasp in his robot mode with his two mold mates. And as I already said, he's not really better or worse than either one. He's just doing his own thing. But I will say he does seem to be a little bit more lacking when it comes to the paint. Not by a huge margin. He has a lot of the same paint apps they do, but he is missing a few key things. Specifically here on the legs. So Waspinator gets painted shins, right? Gets that yellow. And then Buzzsaw swaps that out for like this cool gradient to black right here at the top. This guy just leaves them completely unpainted, which it might be accurate to the source material, but maybe not the most exciting thing. So it's really not a big difference. I think it's really more so that slight lack of paint apps, and then the fact that a lot of his purple takes the place of what would be 2 different or even 3 different plastic colors. Maybe make him, look a little bit samey. But he's still cool for what he is, right? He is just a Waspinator-shaped homage to Skywarp. He's also an homage to an unreleased toy that, may or may not have had a decent amount of paint work, depending on how the finished product would, differ from the prototype. All right, while we have his 2 mold mates here, let's go ahead and look at his alternate head. So it is just the same one that comes with Buzzsaw, painted differently, right? Purple helmet. It's got a metallic blue paint on the ears, which is interesting because I don't think that paint's used anywhere else on the toy. So they went out of their way just to paint this that one color. And then, of course, he has the clear red visor to go with the red plastic that, covers the rest of his body. So let's go ahead. We're going to pop the Wasp head off, which will hopefully be somewhat easy to do. Oh, yeah, came right out. And pop the robot head in. All right, look at that. So then we get this. So this is an alternative look for the character, if you want him to have the more traditional robot head. And is the one that, you know, the character of Skywasp was meant to have, if that toy had ever actually been produced. Now, the color choices they went with for this guy, they don't match what the original concept was. The original concept was going to paint his head very similarly to the old Skywarp toy, complete with, like, kind of a black band around his gold-colored eyes. So, yeah, they didn't go that route. Maybe because it just didn't work with this, you know, version of the head that they produced. But it is still the closest you'll ever get to, you know, recreating the original concept of Skywasp. So, really up to you whether you want to have this head or, you know, the more mutant one. He looks good either way. And I really like, I especially like the metallic blue accents here. They didn't have to do it, but it really helps that head stand out. Especially, you know, when you're comparing it to Buzzsaw, who also has a purple helmet. Here's the robot mode comparison with our club exclusive Parasite. And you can see there are a lot more differences showing in this mode than there was the Wasp mode. The biggest things you'll see is that the heads are different colors, right? Our Skywasp has a purple head, Parasite has a black head, different hand color, feet color, all that. You know, he's got like purple upper arms, he's got black upper arms. So there is a lot of kind of one-for-one, you know, switches going on here. I will say, as far as accuracy to the source material, which was the, you know, Halloween HorrorCon Waspinator, the purples are a lot closer on our new toy. But then the layout is kind of give and take. Like, the feet and hands being purple is accurate to the old toy. However, you know, the black head and the black upper arms for this guy is more accurate to the original toy. But at the end of the day, it's really all, you know, kind of unimportant because the original Halloween HorrorCon Waspinator was the Transmetal Waspinator. So, you know, already he's just going to have a ton of differences from this design as it is. I mean, even in the head, while it's, you know, clearly more designed after the original toy's mutant head than, you know, the regular robot one, really doesn't look all that much like this either. It just kind of has like bug eyes and weird teeth, and that's about the only real similarity. So unless they actually make a new Transmetal Waspinator and then recolor that guy in black and purple, you know, you're just gonna have to accept there are gonna be some differences, right? This isn't going to be a one-for-one replacement of that. It's really just more of an homage than anything. Now here's a fun group shot with the Halloween HorrorCon Waspinator's original pack-in partner, it's Universe Nightprowler. So this is very cool because it's something I never thought we'd actually see. We're getting, you know, as close as possible a recreation of that canceled 2-pack that only made it to the prototype phase. Now there are some pretty big differences. Nightprowler's color scheme is a very loose adaptation of the originals, which included a lot more blue. And then, like I said, Skywasp isn't really even the right body type to recreate that old Waspinator, but it is still pretty close and probably the closest we'll ever get. Now there was one other 2-pack that was going to be part of that theme, and we may possibly get half of it, because half of it was a horror, you know, inspired recolor of the old Black Arachnia toy. And we know that, you know, we have that Toy Colors Black Arachnia from War for Seibertron, which used, you know, the old toy's head. So I can see that, you know, potentially being recolored with those Halloween colors. However, her pack-in partner was a recolor of the Mutant Soundwave, which, you know, was a repurposed Animorphs toy that transformed between a crocodile and a bat, or maybe it was an alligator and a bat. I really don't see them going and recreating the mutants because it was such an obscure thing that was really just thrown in there to recoup the loss on, you know, canceled Animorph toys. I'd love to be wrong because that toy could really use an update. The only version of that mold that exists, which is, you know, the original, the Soundwave, is notorious for breakage from gold plastic syndrome. And then, of course, the recolor we were going to get in the Halloween HorrorCon pack was Leatherhide, who would presumably not have GPS and would have been the only version of that mold that didn't. So I'm not going to get my hopes up. I don't see them doing it, right? They weren't very well-known characters, very obscure. But, I mean, if they do, if they decide to actually make the Beast Wars mutants and, you know, give them a redo, or, you know what, I'll take a reissue. Like, I don't think they'd do it, but if they want to be really cool and reissue Mutant Soundwave and or Leatherhide, this time, with plastic that won't crumble apart, I'll just take that and pair that with a recolor of the Kingdom Black Arachnia. That'd be good enough for me. So I guess, really, this all brings us to the question of, what are we going to do with this toy? He doesn't look exactly like the Halloween Waspinator, he doesn't look exactly like Parasite, and he doesn't look exactly like the original concept for Skywasp. So really it's up to you. I think at the end of the day, personally, I'm going to leave him with the standard robot head and just keep him true to the old concept of Skywasp, at least, as much as possible. But you have a lot of options. He can fill a lot of shoes here, which does make this toy very cool and very versatile. Here's our robot comparison for Scorponok, and you can see much more toy-based than the regular Kingdom one. Really what that means is he actually has quite a bit less when it comes to paint apps. He doesn't have, all the crazy, funny little gold details and stuff on the crest, the little horns next to his face. Doesn't have little painted goatee, little dot in the middle there, the stuff on his shins. Really loses a lot of that. But again, he is trying to look like the original toy, so that makes sense. And what's interesting is that his head is painted up to, as best as possible, resemble the robot head of the regular toy. However, Scorponok's CGI model head really isn't a great match for the original robot head because they really embellished a lot of the details when they translated him from plastic to CGI. So this is really about the best they can do. And overall, I think it looks good. Unless they were really going to go and retool a third head option specifically for this guy, which I didn't see them doing anyway. This is about the best we can expect. And I will say, I think his colors just look so much better than the Kingdom one. Again, Sandstorm's kind of doing his own thing, so he's not very comparable. But I will say that out of the three of these, I think this new one just takes the cake. I think it is the coolest looking use of this mold so far. Now, of course, I'm excited to get a Sandstorm toy because, he was a BotCon exclusive. I never had that one, but I always wanted it. But his colors are so far off the mark that I can't really praise him as highly as I can this new Toy Colors guy because I think he looked perfect. At least, as perfect as this mold can look. Speaking of, let's go ahead and look at that mutant head. So here it is, detached. And, it is the same mold as the one that comes with Sandstorm, but it is colored to look like the old toy. Complete with, black in the middle, red around the edges, and those bright yellow eyes. So let's go ahead. His head's kind of easy to pop off. You just make him look up, and it'll just kind of come out. So, push that on. Push it back if it'll go any further. I guess that's as far as it goes. All right. So then we get this. And this comes a lot closer because it's actually molded to look like the toy, unlike, this head right here. And I like it. I prefer the mutant head on the regular Scorponok toy, so I kind of prefer it on this guy too. Though I will say, losing all that nice metallic blue color on the helmet is a bit of a shame, because it's a really, really nice color. Here's our reissue Scorponok again, so we can compare these guys. And first, let's compare his head to, the one that comes packaged with this guy. And you can see what they were going for, right? They kind of cut down the total amount of paint apps just to make him more properly resemble this. So he's got the gold visor, he's got the blue or purple color around most of the helmet, and then white around the face area, like the mouth area. But you can see sculpt-wise, it's very, very different, right? He gains these little horn things on his cheeks. He's actually got a mouth instead of this weird vent thing going on here. But, it comes close enough for what it is. So, I do appreciate it. But of course, we can go ahead and close this up to reveal his mutant head. And you can see just how good of a job they do emulating all this. Again, this guy trades out the usual black for gray, so you got to use your imagination a bit. But you can see the layout is pretty spot on here. Now, one thing I noticed, and I didn't realize it till just now, the eye colors on these two don't match, right? He gets clearly bright yellow, whereas his is more of a yellowish green, or almost even a lime green. I can't remember off the top of my head if the original toy had lime green eyes or if it had yellow. I'll have to double check that. So that may be one small inaccuracy to what would otherwise be a very toy accurate recolor. And again, I'm a huge fan of the mutant head for this guy. I just think it works for him. It gives him that fully armored look, right? He's almost like a Scorpion Knight. So as much as I prefer, displaying my Beast Wars Scorponok with the mutant head on display, I think I want to display my new Toy Colors one with that same head. I think it just works better for him. Of course, it's your toy. There's definitely quality to both heads, because, while this one may have more accurate sculpting, the colors on this head are just really phenomenal. They look very, very good. So it's up to you, and I might even change my mind over time. I might look at this thing on my shelf and say, you know what, I think I prefer the shiny blue head, but we'll just have to see. And this completes our look at the new Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide 4-pack. Overall, I gotta say, this is a very fun little multi-pack. You get a lot of stuff here. You get 2 Generation 1 characters that were in sore need of proper updates. I mean, in fact, Ransack's never had an update. There have been other characters called Ransack, but as far as the Insecticon, it's just the G1 toy. So this is his first outing, and it's a good one. It really, it works for him. Again, new mold would have been better, but oh well. Goldbug is pretty much exactly what we were expecting, right? Just the Bumblebee body with a Goldbug head and color scheme. So can't really ask for more than that, though new weapons would have been nice. And yeah, I mean, there have been other Goldbugs or Goldbug-based characters like Goldfire, but this is like the first real proper one since the G1 toy. And then we get our Toy Color Scorponok. He's very cool. I really, really just prefer his colors over the Kingdom release. Like, I'm not even against having the show colors, but they botched the show colors. So, like, if they had done something a lot closer to the, the sparkly blue and stuff of this guy, darker reds that he uses, I think it would have been a far better toy. So, in absence of that, I think this is, clearly the superior version. And it just looks cool. I mean, old Beast Wars toys are always going to have a special place in my heart, so getting an homage to that's always going to make me happy. And then we get Skywasp, who is, probably the most out there of the bunch. He's based off an unreleased toy, which was based off a club exclusive toy, which was based off an unreleased toy. So, quite the history this guy has here. And again, he can really serve as 3 different characters. He can be Skywasp, he can be Parasite, or he can be a recolored Waspinator. So, yeah, I mean, just a lot to do with this. And I think a lot of people are really underselling this set. Most people's reaction that I saw to this was like, oh, I only want Goldbug, or I only want Goldbug and Ransack, and oh, you're gonna, see so many of these Beast Wars guys up for sale. And while there is some truth to that, like, there are clearly going to be people that buy this just for 1 or 2 of the G1 characters because they're, like, super purists. I think, outside of that very, very tailored collecting, there's a lot to offer everybody here. I mean, they're just really, really cool figures. And it's funny because I really don't like the Kingdom Scorponok mold. Like, I really don't. But this one's a lot of fun. And even though he pales in comparison to, like, the sheer, size and intimidation of the original toy, he's still just so cool looking for what he is. I mean, the colors are just great. The Skywasp thing is really cool. I maybe didn't need him as badly as, maybe some people, because I have Parasite, and he was, pretty much close enough to that homage anyway. But, for people that don't have that, or somebody that wants a proper Skywasp with, the alternate head, he's really pretty perfect. And then, of course, Ransack and Goldbug, absolute must-haves for G1 collectors. Again, Ransack's a retool that might put some people off, but he's a very, very good retool. Even though the only thing new on him is just a head, they already planned him out ahead of time, so, he's already got a built-in insect abdomen, and the colors are spot on. So, while you could technically ask for more, I think you couldn't ask for more, within the confines of what they were trying to do. So, yeah, I think if you, put the money down on this and pick it up, it is discounted from what, 4 deluxes would regularly cost. I think you'd be very happy with it. There's a lot here for everyone, and if you really only want 1 or 2 of the figures, I'm sure you can sell or give the other figures away to somebody that would really appreciate them. Of course, that is just how I feel about this 4-pack, so now I want to know what you all think of it. Is this something that's on your radar? Have you been waiting for this to come out since it was first leaked/revealed? Do you want all or some of the figures in this? Or does this not do it for you? Maybe the characters are too obscure for you. Maybe you don't like the recolors and retools. Maybe it's just too expensive and you don't want to have to put the money down for all 4. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the very awesome, brand new Transformers Legacy Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide 4-pack. And with all that said, I will see you next time.